Thank you for the very kind introduction. And thank you, Cornell, for the information. It's a deep honor to be here on such a wonderful day. When I first got the email, I thought it was a mistake. Maybe they just wanted my help to find a speaker. And then I read it well and said, oh wow, they want me to speak. Then it dawned on me, what do I say? What do I tell people at Cornell, one of the foremost institutions in the world? What do I tell you guys on the 57th anniversary of the independence of my motherland? I reread Kwame Nkrumah's speeches, the father of Pan-Africanism and the founder of modern day Ghana. I reread his speeches all of last night. And I went to the Bible and read my Bible for inspiration to figure out what to tell you today. In looking at his speech on Independence Day, exactly 57 years ago, I quote, "At long last the battle has ended, and Ghana, your beloved country, is free forever." And yet again, I want to take the opportunity to thank the chiefs and people of this country, the youth, the farmers, the women who have so nobly fought and won this battle. And I want to thank the valiant ex-servicemen who have cooperated with me in this mighty task of freeing our country from foreign rule and imperialism. I make it quite clear from now on today, we must change our attitudes, our minds. We must realize that from now on, we are no more a colonial, but a free and independent people. But also, as I pointed out, that entails hard work. I am dependent upon the millions of the people in this country to help me to reshape the destiny of this country. We are prepared to pick it up and make it a nation that will be respected by every nation in the world. We know we're going to have difficult beginnings, but I'm relying upon your support. I'm relying upon your hard work. Seeing you in this, it doesn't matter how far my eye goes, I can see that you are here in your millions. And I tell you to stand firmly behind us so we can prove to the world that when an African is given a chance, he can show the world that he is somebody. We have awakened. We will not sleep anymore. Today, from now on, there is a new African in the world. The new African that is ready to fight his own battles and show that after all, the black man is capable of managing his own affairs. We are going to demonstrate to the world and to other nations that we are prepared to lay our own foundations. As I said in the assembly a few minutes ago, I made a point that we are going to create our own African personality and identity. It is the only way that we can show the world that we are ready for our battles. We have won the battle, and we again rededicate ourselves. But remember, our independence is meaningless unless it is linked with the total liberation of Africa. Our independence is meaningless unless it is linked with the total liberation of Africa. And he ended, "Let us now, fellow Ghanaians, let us now ask for God's blessings. And for only 2 seconds in your thousands and millions, I want to ask you to pause for only 1 minute and give thanks to Almighty God for having led us through our difficulties, imprisonments, hardships, and sufferings, to have brought us to the end of our trouble today." 57 years since that epic speech from Sajid. 57 years, over 20,800 days. As I sat on my couch last night, my wooden Africa dangling above me like a delicate icicle, my bed surrounded by portraits of my heroes, Osajifo, Madiba, Malcolm, Martin, and my sweet mother. I picked up my book, Contemporary Africa Through Poetry, and I read some poems I wrote 15 years ago, which I will share with you. The first is, I saw the ghost. I saw the ghosts of our gold. They were dressed in a foreign attire. I saw the ghosts of our ancestors. They were dressed in clothes handed down from their white masters. I saw the ghosts of our cocoa. They were covered in chocolate, made in Europe. I saw the ghost of our culture. She was naked, with nothing but a piece of kente around her waist. I saw the ghosts of our so-called leaders. They were dressed in half their country's money. I saw the ghost of Kwame Nkrumah. He was screaming out, African unity. I saw the ghosts of our elephant. They were screaming out, stop killing us for our trunks. I saw the ghost of our peace. She was skinny, screaming out, please, free me. Second poem from 15 years ago, African Pain and Agony. Through pain and agony, we pray for unity. Stress from elections, so we ask for less corruption. We work from dusk till dawn, but our money isn't where the paper it is printed on. We sit and mourn for help from the World Bank and the IMF, but they only hurt us more. We bear the worst slums on the earth's surface. Foreigners maltreat us because they feel we lack purpose. Backwards, primitive, third world, hippic. This is how we are depicted. It is time for change. It is time to train our young minds, no pain, no gain. We must stop begging for money. Let's put our hands back in our pockets and work hard until we fill our own back pockets. When I think of our lack of progress, it saddens me, my brother and sister. I hope you also feel the African pain and agony. And the last poem I read last night was The African Dream. I dream of unity between our countries. I dream of a remedy for our diseases. I dream of a decline in poverty. I dream of a rise in autonomy. I dream that our people become dependent on intelligence rather than religion. I dream that our nations become debt-free. I dream that we are not reduced to names such as third world country. I dream of unrivaled policemen. I dream of corrupt-free governments. I dream of reliable lights and water. Light off. I dream that we serve ourselves before the Ogronis. I dream that we don't neglect our culture. I dream that all Africans are this, and not that of the Europeans. I glanced up at a massive flag like this one, adorning my wall. Red, gold, green, with a black star. Designed by Madame Oko. The red represents the blood that was shed by our forefathers. The gold represents the wealth which we are endowed with in Ghana. The green symbolizes the rich grasslands and vegetation. And the black star is the symbol of the Ghanaian people and African emancipation. I reflected on 57 years. 57 years since Osajifo's speech. I reflected. And I wept. I wept. I wept. The blood flowed like a still river and hung over the black star like ominous clouds gathering before a storm. The blood of our ancestors, our forefathers, our freedom fighters, the men and women who gave up their lives so we can be free. And I thought to myself, where is our red? Where is our blood? Lansing views appear to me. What happens to a dream deferred? Does it dry up like a raisin in the sun, or fester like a sore and then run? Does it stink like rotten meat, or crust and sugar over like a syrupy sweet? Maybe it just sags like a heavy load, or does it explode? Ghana. We're a petroleum and natural gas producer, one of the world's largest gold and diamond producers, the second largest cocoa producer in the world, and home to Lake Volta, the largest artificial lake in the world by surface area, created by Osajifo 57 years ago, and he gave his speech. Ghana is a regional power, a founding member of the Non-Aligned Movement, a founder of ECOWAS, and Osajifo was the architect of the African Union. Despite all these initial advantages, we have failed to consistently capture successful long-term growth. Although we went through moments of expansion with widespread optimism, our development, is it a miracle or is it a mirage? Underlying structural changes that need to happen have not occurred. From the mid-1970s to the 1980s, Ghana faced drastic economic decline with negative growth rates, hyperinflation, food shortages, massive unemployment, deterioration of the pre-colonial infrastructure, weakening health and social welfare systems, and environmental degradation. In the past 2 decades, the IMF and the World Bank have heralded as Africa's success story. We have simultaneously confronted the challenge of increasing dependence on foreign aid, exponential external debt, high rates of unemployment and poverty, and deindustrialization resulting from the elimination of protective measures. Recent assessments of development in sub-Saharan Africa indicate serious flaws in the policy prescriptions by international institutions, suggesting that the status quo cannot work for Africa. In 1957, 57 years ago, Ghana and South Korea had the same per capita GDP. Ghana and South Korea had the exact same per capita GDP. 30 years later, South Korea's GDP and GDP per capita is over 10 times that of Ghana. The economic retrogression in the ensuing period stemmed from allowing hyperinflation, overregulation, production disincentives, institutionalized demoralization, and the deterioration of our government. Since 1983, we embarked on an economic recovery program, liberalizing the economy and putting in place administrative reforms. And this led to real GDP growth, though we still depend on the international price of commodities and foreign aid. Whereas President Park, beginning in the mid-1960s in South Korea, successfully introduced an export-oriented economy by developing export pride, national leadership, market-sustaining incentives, labor incentives, research, and investment in technical education. And while both countries had state-owned enterprises, only South Korea, as an example, was successful. In '92, Ghana held its first elections in over a decade, taking a decisive step to return to democratic rule. And today, Ghana is widely considered the success story for democracy on the continent. Sadly, we're one of the only countries on the continent to have had successive changes in government from one party to another that is peaceful and widely considered free and fair. However, a democratic environment is not characterized only by free elections. It necessitates an effective legislature and an independent judiciary. True democracy involves regular consultation with civil society, the rule of law, transparency, and accountability of government. All these ingredients have been present, but lacking in a lot of ways. Democracy is not, I give you 50 Ghana cedis for your vote. Democracy is not, I peddle lies on a stand and promise you the world when I know I cannot deliver. Democracy is not taking the billions of state resources and squandering it. Democracy is not selling our future children and grandchildren into slavery because of the high amount of external debt and the level of incompetence in our government administration over the years. Our economic strategy has focused on macroeconomic stabilization and economic structural reform. Yet every election year, the cedi jumps off a cliff and will depreciate by as much as 30 to 40%. All that said, I'll just throw you 50 Ghana cedis and get your vote. And all the existing literature and scholarship had showed that the villager doesn't think. Yet they shocked Ghanaians with what we now call skirt and blouse voting. They took your 50 cedis and voted elsewhere. The villagers showed us that they are going to redefine their understanding of democracy. They voted one party for the presidency and a different party for parliamentary. And it shocked everyone. The political pundits were stunned. They didn't understand how a common man in Bunkrugu or someone in Bantaman could teach them something new about politics. We now have an independent media. In my own lifetime, growing up, I remember, in the late 80s and the early 90s in Ghana, you did not have the same freedom to speak on radio or in the newspapers. You had the criminal libel law. Yet today, we have freedom of the press in ways where sometimes we complain we have too much freedom of the press. If you listen to radio stations in Ghana, you will quickly understand. But there's a lot to be proud of in the way we've consolidated the democratic gains in the last 20 years. Ghana in 2011 was also the fastest growing economy in the world. We grew at a real rate of 14.4%. And that growth has to be looked at in the context of Africa. I was on my way to school in the year 2000, and I'll never forget this day. I was in traffic when I saw the newspaper man holding a magazine. The magazine had a black cover, and the black cover had a picture of my beautiful continent with a man holding a bazooka in the middle with a headline, "The Hopeless Continent." That was the Economist in the year 2000. Yet today, that same magazine ran a cover saying Africa Rising. Because today, 7 of the 10 fastest growing economies are in Africa. Because today, Africa actually has more cities with over 1 million people than Europe. The trends are happening. In 2030, Africa will have the youngest labor population in the world. Today, the world wakes up and realizes that we are 1 billion people in a consuming class with purchasing power close to $1 trillion as of last year. But there are still challenges. Unemployment is massive. Massive unemployment issues. Given the demographics I just spoke about, we need to create jobs for the millions, the tens of millions of young people that will be produced. Even though we have 11 million people in our labor force, technically speaking, it is estimated the vast majority of them are in the informal sector, which means they will not contribute to the national budget by paying taxes. Furthermore, with no official recognition of their jobs, they'll have no pension fund or social security benefits. Infrastructural issues. We have not been able to adjust our economic growth with the types of infrastructural development that needs to happen. Anyone who's visited Ghana knows that shortages of electricity and water are an everyday occurrence, sometimes for prolonged stretches of time and all across the nation. We simply cannot build a middle-income country, and we cannot build a country that should be the black star of Africa with these challenges continuing in 2014. Despite significant progress towards most of the Millennium Development Goals, and in fact, Ghana is one of the countries that has had some of the greatest progress in eliminating poverty and improving our development indicators. We still have many ways to go in MDG 4 in reducing child mortality, MDG 5 in improving maternal health, and the sanitation component of MDG 7. In a recent speech, our Vice President, His Excellency Amisa Arthur, spoke about how Ghana today versus the 70s, where it was a